Well, I think one thing that is perhaps surprising is the lack of appreciation for the diversity of different experience and the need to look at context and contextual categories rather than to apply a meta-narrative that applies and works across the board. So try to look at countries on their own terms and see that something which works in one country might not in fact work in another one, in particular to focus on the cultural, social and political context which gives rise to development policies in the first place. Well, I think if you look at countries emerging from war in particular, which is one area that I've been concerned with, I think it is striking how, again, development actors tend to treat countries a bit like a clean slate, rather than looking at these countries as ones that have been transformed by war, and in which therefore traditional development policies, traditional templates will not necessarily work. And I think the attempt to narrow the gap between what we'd like to see and what actually is the reality on the ground is a major challenge, and it persists. I mean, the World Bank is interesting in the sense that it has a lot of the right language in its reports. It's conflict sensitive, it pays attention to the realities of war and so on and so forth. But when you look at their individual performance, it very often looks as if they're treating a country as sometimes at any rate, as a sort of laboratory experiment where you can impose your policies uncontaminated by other realities. I think understanding the state, understanding state fragility, state resilience, and what we sometimes refer to as state collapse. And what I mean by that is not just to think of the state in purely Weberian terms, which collapses and then has to be fixed and put back together again, but as a very complex arrangement between state and society, in which there is what some call a social contract, but in which there are many divisions within it. Understanding that, I think, is a very major challenge.